Okay, well, welcome to this stream. We'll see if this works. I'm kind of doing an impromptu streaming setup away from my home streaming setup. And so you'll have to tell me if it sounds okay, looks okay, because I don't have any faith in this current setup at all. We'll find out. But we're going to be talking about the new Logic Pro 12, which just came out this morning. And we're going to be looking at it and discussing it. And we're not going to just take anybody's word when they say that they like this update, because we all know the truth. Deep down inside our hearts, we know that every single thing that I've heard people ask for, talk about, want, that we got very little of that. So we're going to discuss that. And we're going to also talk about how awesome Logic Pro already was before this version. And so if you're finding yourself having a hard time making music, then maybe we should be talking about something else. And so here we are. And jump in the chat. I would love to hear some of your thoughts about this. I'm not going to just be Mr. Negativity, although perhaps there'll be some of that as well. So first and foremost, we did get the new synthesis, the session player that focuses on synthesis. We did get the chord ID and the chord analysis for the chord track, which is, in my opinion, one of the bright shining stars of the whole thing. And we did get a number of other small things. For the record, tonight, this evening, we're going to be doing a reading of the entire release notes. But if you're someone who's already read through them, you'll see there are a number of other things that were added or changed or fixed. So we'll talk about those things as well. No ARA support and no sound engine support or update. Nothing. So we didn't get anything really big beyond what they had already announced. I mean, what they announced is what we got. Somebody in the chat says, did they break the chord move or the channel strip moving functionality in the mixer? No, it still works. Okay, cool. Cool. So we did get the sound library, which allows us to download things. In fact, you have to come here to get the synth session player pack, which I've yet to really mess around with too much. I did mess around with the synthesizer player, the synth player this morning for a little bit, and did some talking about it in my Logic Pro class at the university this morning. So it's like I've gotten into it a little bit. Overall, I find that the change to Logic Pro 12 just to make it sound like something special for the creator studio was a little bit ridiculous. I don't think this was a whole jump up to 12, and we've only been on 11.2 for a year. So, but there is a lot under the hood. There are some things that we'll talk about tonight that I need to mess around with. For instance, MIDI 2.0 has an expansion. If you're using anything with MIDI 2.0, then this will be a nice thing. But let's look just for a second at the new chord ID and analysis tool. This is something I'm going to make probably an entire series of videos about because I feel like this was the one thing that I really liked most. And let's see, I'm going to have to do this on a different screen for a second. It looks like, yeah, here we go. I went and found a bunch of my old songs from when I was like in high school. So 30 years ago. And this was one of the things I was most excited about because I really think being able to just quickly do a chord analysis of something was something that I was interested in. So I'm going to bring in one of these old songs that I recorded on like a mini disc player or something. Logic is so good with some of this stuff, but it analyzes the tempo really accurately, I've discovered. Not always accurately, but pretty well. And then now we're going to analyze chords. And this, I mean, did you see how fast that was? I just did an entire song worth of chord analysis that fast. And now they're on the regions, and then we can just simply say apply region chords to chord track, and then our chord track just pops those up. That, if you're doing anything with this type of workflow, there's nothing to complain about with this update whatsoever. Now, all of those chords can trigger all of the session players, and because we have a custom tempo map, we can do the groove track and also have the session players react to what's happening. This was worth everything. This is the only part of this update that I actually found really useful. That's cool. That right there. Does it with audio, does it with MIDI. So far as I can tell, it did it pretty accurately as well. But I'm going to have to explore. There's like, we do it with one track, it's hard to say exactly what's going to be happening, but I do feel like maybe with this one, it thinks we're in a different key. It really should be probably D minor throughout the whole thing, but you never know. We'll have to go through that and figure it out. Interesting that it does. Someone in the chat, let's see, Frank is saying chord analysis does MIDI track, but it's a little slower because it has to generate an audio track first. Interesting. That we'll get there with some of our tests with this, but this is by far one of my favorite features of the whole thing. Of course, afterwards we can come through and customize and change these around. It's really, really important that the chord track can do this. That's awesome. Next, the sound, get more sounds is cool. That's fine. The session player keyboardist is now split into two different things. We have the synth with simple pad, modulated pad, and rhythmic chords, and then the same for the piano. And we can choose one of these. Here's what I was hoping. So here's what I'm always hoping for. When we get this, you'll see we have 9 presets inside that. And if we change this to modulated pad, we've got 8 different presets. And if we go with the simple pad, it's like they gave us this instrument, but not actually as many presets and things that I was hoping for. But that being said, this whole engine now, let's go back to the rhythmic chords for a second. This whole thing with the details and the other control in the session player, if you have done anything with synthesizers, you'll see that this is, so far, it seems really well laid out and organized, and I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this now, especially since the chord track. So if I play a song on my keyboard and then it converts that into the chord track, I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this just like the bass and maybe the other piano player, maybe not as much the piano player as the synthesizer, and then with the drums. I'm going to be using those because now it feels like it's all tied together full circle. And so I think that that's actually useful. One thing that I haven't yet tested out, but it would make sense that we could do this. So some of these Apple loops that we've had all of this time, let's scroll to the end, yeah. So like a 70s electric piano. I don't know if I've got audio. Let's see. So you can pull any of these Apple loops out now and do the analysis. And once you do the analysis and you can make anything follow them. So we continue to make the actual existing Apple loops even more useful as we're doing this. So they haven't gone through and actually added the key and the chords to all of the Apple loops. Like at one point I thought they would do, but now I guess it doesn't matter. We can just use any of them and pull the chords and use them in a song creation. And it changes how things work. Let me catch up with some of the comments. After 25 years, we now have a MIDI browser in the File Explorer. Sweet. I am interested to dig in. There are some things that I don't think are fully showing up in our details, but let's see. Let's pull out a MIDI file real quick. I'm curious. There's a nice little MIDI file. I'll have to figure out what you're talking about. Our file browser does not show MIDI. So the chord analysis, Frank is saying detects the key. I know, but I think that they detected the key incorrectly is what I was thinking. I don't remember playing any songs with an E sharp in it when I was 30 years ago. So the fact that it's saying this is an E sharp, an E sharp major chord is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. So I'm going to have to sort that out a little bit and figure it out. And I don't think it's that the piano I was playing on was so out of tune that it was registering as a totally wrong note, but it's possible. I'd have to actually go back and listen and do a further analysis on my own. But I certainly was not playing E sharp major chords. And so to me, that suggests that it's really an F major chord and that the key signature was analyzed incorrectly. So we can change all that stuff though, but I don't know how easy it is to change an entire song. Or if I need to put the key signature first to give it a clue that it's really an F or a D minor situation. I don't know. The icon, by the way, is slightly different. You can kind of see it down on my bar right there. I think like maybe the record's a little bit bigger, but it's still the black and white or the silver platinum record on a black background. It's not the new icon that's associated with the Creator Studio, which I'm not using. I didn't subscribe to the Creator Studio at this point. All I've done is update Logic Pro. Right-click on the MIDI file, then select Quick Look to preview. In the actual timeline, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Or are you talking about over in the actual thing on the other side, in the file? Wow, clearly not there. I don't know what you're talking about yet. In the browser. Ulate says, don't want to interrupt your train of thought, but thanks, you did. And I'm just kidding. You're totally fine to do that. Do your one-to-one Zoom apps include you taking over the screen? Are you currently actively taking appointments? Oh, yes. I'm not actively taking appointments right this moment. But if you were to email me, because, I would be more than happy to set up something outside of that system for the moment. Zoom appointments, yes, in the past I've worked with a number of people on those one-on-one Zoom calls, and it works in a lot of different ways. We make it work however, but I've definitely taken over people's computers and helped troubleshoot things. We've also done a lot of creative exploration, a lot of training. I find one-on-one training is the most useful because instead of just doing general things aimed at all of YouTube, that you can actually get the help you need in specific areas. And teaching is what I'm trained in as a profession, so which is helpful too. Let's see, what else are we? I know I missed some comments. Hey, Plastodon. And this is more of an informal stream because, as you can see, I'm not in my home studio. I'm in my office on campus in Denver, which is a pretty cool office. And the view I have out my window of the Rocky Mountains is pleasant. If you look down, all you see are parking lots. But if you look up, it's beautiful. And so I think this afternoon, when I get back on my main station, we'll be doing this. It's like I've noticed so many things different about Logic today that I didn't see inside the release notes. For instance, I went to do my settings and turn on or off advanced mode in one of our lab computers, and I noticed that we don't have the ability to do advanced view mode anymore, at least not in the same place in the menu. So maybe it's a separate place, but I don't see that anywhere. So it looks like we lost simple mode, which is fine. I think we've just lost it completely. I don't know. But there's things like that we're going to figure out as we use it for a couple days, and we're going to be like, wait a second, how do we do this thing? It's an argument for the majority of people to figure out if it would help them to have this or not, and then to make that decision based on what we're actually doing rather than just jumping into the update right off the bat. It should already be available over there in the EU. If you're not seeing it in your update area of the App Store, then maybe you actually go to the Logic Pro page. Sometimes they just are there instead of on the update page. So a number of you have already mentioned ARA not being included, and it's not, and we're not expecting it. I've not heard from anybody who knows that it's coming immediately. I didn't think we were thinking it would be here. They certainly would have talked about that in the press release if it was coming. And so that wasn't one of the things we were expecting. We'll see. So, yes, we'll do a little preview of the release note party for tonight. So if anybody's around and wants to actually read through all of the release notes, I've read through them once already, and I think it's really useful. The AI session player they're making a really big deal out of that being a feature. It's like somebody at Apple was saying, hey, we're going to make this 12 because we want to make a big deal out of it. Do you guys have enough ready to go? And they're like, oh, crap. All we have is this new synthesizer session player. The synth players, I guess we can add a few more bullet points on the release notes to make it seem like it's a really big deal. The session library, cool. we needed that just to get new, fresh content instead of having to wait for updates. We'll see how much they use it. They have not been using it that much, even for GarageBand or the iPad version. They just haven't. And then this list of other enhancements. And this is where the only thing I'll look at today for a few minutes, but you can now disallow having multiple projects open at the same time. After all of these years, they're finally saying, well, I guess you can turn off having multiple projects open at the same time. Why would we need the ability? Just close some of the projects. Maybe it's to help prevent people from accidentally having two projects open. Oh my gosh, I love this. That's the number one enhancement after the synth player and the sound library. The synth player did put the chord ID in that bullet area, so fair enough. The next one was the Quantec Room, or the Reverb now offers controls for pre-delay, pre-cut, and pre-level. Awesome. The step sequencer can now display MIDI 2.0 data. I would love to see a show of hands by those people who are using MIDI 2.0 in the chat. Please tell me if you're using MIDI 2.0 and how many of you are saying that's one of the features we wanted. Matter of fact, how many of you were asking for the pre-delay control in the Quantec? Cool. One thing that I have wondered about, and I'm going to have fun exploring this, Logic now is compatible with spatial audio recordings from your iPhone. So if you're at like a concert and do a spatial audio thing, I'm really curious to see how this ties into Logic. That could be a lot of fun, but it's very niche and it's specialized and not a big deal. Zones and sampler can now be selected based on their RMS levels. That's actually incredibly useful if you're doing sample libraries. That is super useful. Now possible to copy paste clear individual pages in long step sequencer patterns. Also really useful if you're using those. It's now possible to limit the maximum boost in the match EQ filter curve. Cool. Nobody needed that either, but the track inspector now supports multi-track selections. That could be a really big deal if you're doing stuff with multi-track selections. The step sequencer, this was actually higher than all the other ones. The step sequencer now offers new playback modes, the pendulum, the Brownian, and the ARP 1 and 2. That brings us up in line with, I think it was Cubase that just got a better step sequencer with some of those things. I think it was Cubase. Cool. I'm going to have fun with some of the ARP modes in the step sequencer. For sure. Guaranteed that'll be used. The use flex time option in the details section of the new project sheet allows flex time to be turned on when you create new projects. I don't know why that wasn't in there in the first place. And then it is now possible to create a pattern region by dragging one-shot sample to Drum Machine Designer. That's all of the new enhancements. Does that sound like a Logic Pro 12 to anybody? That sounds very much like 11.3. So the numbering scheme aside, which is stupid, it's a good update. It's a good update, but it's just ridiculous that they're trying to pretend like this is a big deal. And given that, so I stream quite a bit. Some of you know I stream on a regular basis. And I talk about updates especially, and I read the release notes. There's a lot more in these release notes. I'm not going to do that now. That'll be a tonight thing when we go through every single section and talk about every single bug fix. But I've done this a lot, and people say, oh, I wish Logic could something. I wish Logic could something. I wish Logic could do this thing or this thing. Aside from the chord ID, there's not a single update that really addresses what most people talk about wanting from Logic. So either one of my bigger theories about Logic is true, and it could be, which is that the iPad version of Logic is the new version of Logic. It's just they're waiting until we're all asleep one day to switch them out. Because the actual file browser in Logic Pro for iPad is better. And you can do more with it and search more with it. It's like the new plain English searchability in the iPad version, which we're going to look at in a separate video, is one of the most important things that they updated. It means that the team is working on the iPad version more than the desktop version. And if that scares you because you think a subscription model is your breaking point, or you don't like the iPad version for some reason, then it may be time to look at other workstations, because if they're adding the coolest new things in both the desktop and the iPad version, but then all of the other cool things are just in the iPad version, which the browser is just in the iPad version. Our browser for Logic is still the crappy library that we've had forever. They didn't make any cool improvements to it when they know that we want it. They didn't change hardly anything with it. But the iPad version has changed yet again and upped the game for what you can do in there. It just means that this desktop version has its days numbered. I guarantee. I mean, they didn't do anything in here except for the chord ID thing, which is in both. I think it's time to get an iPad with a bigger screen. Start using that more often. The reason, this is from Fresh as in the comments. The reason browser is actually really useful. I've found it more useful than any other browser and a lot of other software stuff right now. I'm just reading through comments. Frank says, could be worse. They could have changed the name to Fender Logic Pro. In our case, given leadership at Apple, they would have changed it to iPad Studio Pro or iPhone Studio Pro. Yeah, the browser is the same, but the iPad browser is better. It is, I promise. It does cool things, and now with this new update, I'll probably later this week actually do a full video on how it works, because I want to explore. I don't know if it'll be a video that's like a stream or a canned video in advance. Most of the time I do streams these days, because I feel like, for me, my favorite part of all of this is talking to all of you and hearing your points of view on things. But it's kind of a really sketchy workflow right this moment to be here in my office without all my streaming gear. Is my audio okay, by the way? I can't tell. Wow. Z says, even Internet Explorer is a better browser than Logic's browser. That's like a knife in the heart, but it's so true. Okay, good. So far, though, the comment came through that says, it looks like Apple may offer new features in the Creator Studio. May happen with Logic too, but that's down the road. For now, they're saying that it's exactly the same for both versions and not different. And so I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope for that in the short term. So a comment comes in, says there are 3 things people want, ARA, browser fix, and scale highlight and piano roll. So we do have, what is the new thing in here? The snap to scale. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing I need to look and see exactly if we can get a full list. I'm going to probably keep my laptop Logic on 12 and my desktop version on 11.2.2 for a couple hours today and just set them side by side and be like, what's different? What's changing here? Which of these buttons are a little bit different? Because it's no guarantee that everything made it into the release notes. Sometimes the release notes have double. They add two things. Sometimes there's typos that are pretty interesting. Sometimes they just leave stuff off completely. And so that'll be interesting. I'll do a comparison before I do the stream tonight. So here's my guess. We're going to do this afternoon when I get back to my streaming station. We'll do another stream talking about some of this and anything else that has come up across all of the internet of people saying, hey, there's this. And then this evening we'll do the release note reading. So if you're across the ocean away from America, then the release note stream may be in the middle of your night. So you have to watch it later. But the afternoon stream will hopefully be in a few hours, and I'll be able to look closer at what's different between the two. And then, so 3 streams today is the plan. I'm still checking out comments. Shining Hour Pop says, being a guitar player, the only thing that interests me is the chord track. I like the session bass player is one of the highlights for me. The instrument that they made for that is so good. The session player is really good. Now, and this is what I always wanted, was the ability to play something, just have it analyzed for chords and then add the bass player. I'm never going to work differently. Even if I'm working on somebody else's song, unless it's a band that really loves their bass player. That sounds horrible. I'm going to say, leave your bass player home for this session. We've got one that we can use. Sounds horrible. Studio Pro, it is far superior. I mean, you're talking about Fender Studio Pro music? Musical Human? 'Cause I'm so jealous of Fender Studio Pro this week because when they got their new version, they're up at 8, they got all of the guitar stuff, which by all accounts has the stamp of approval of Fender and sounds better than what we have in Logic. And so, and their chord track has been better than ours for a long time. And now they've got that thing from Celemony. The name I cannot remember ever. It's on here. That's the problem. It has a name that is not rememberable. Tonalic. Why call it Tonalic? That's dumb. But Tonalic works in Fender Studio Pro, and it looks incredible. And we don't have that. We don't even have ARA. But that's what I was saying, Frank. If you get Fender Studio and then have Tonalic, you have the session players, but better. And the MIDI tempo detection, that would be rough. I do find, so one of the videos I'm going to be working on shortly is this whole thing of taking an old demo that I recorded 30 years ago and putting it through all of the tempo tools and the chord tools and the session players and modernizing it and actually making a song out of it using the original ideas. And that's Logic is so good at that right now. It is so good. But so much more room to grow. Okay, I think we're going to pull the plug on this stream. I know I want to keep talking. This day is going to be all about talking, so check back in a few hours for another stream where we continue this particular conversation. The only reason I'm cutting this short is because it turns out I have a job that I really like outside of this, and that job is teaching. And I have a class that starts in 8 minutes. It's audio production 2, and we're going to be learning how to route audio from our workstation into our SSL console so that students can do a mix using all the SSL dynamics and EQ and outboard gear. And so that's important. I don't want to blow off class. That would be kind of against what I believe in. But so, someone is saying the remote on iPad needs to be updated to be compatible. Todd, I teach at the University of Colorado, Denver, UC Denver. We actually have in our music industry program about 1,200 students. About half of those, just under half, are recording arts students. And if any of you ever are in Denver and want to come by and get a tour and do some music in our studios, which are really amazing, then let me know. It'd be cool to do some. Our Atmos room for Logic Pro is amazing. It's so cool. If you're ever around, let me know. That being said, I now have 7 minutes to go get set up. Like I said, 2 more streams today, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. And the one in the evening is the sacred reading of the release notes, where we go through every single one and talk about the impact or the lack of impact that they'll have on our lives. And then this afternoon one will just be an update on what we've discovered since this morning. And we're going to find out some stuff. So thanks for watching, and more coming. So check back if you're available in a few hours.